Faith, Fiction, and Folklore, or the Try F podcast, where we try not to F the podcast up. Um, Speaking of Fs, we got a show tonight. If you are under the age of 18, you probably don't want to listen to
We
this.
got a show.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about Bonnie Blue. She had an interview with Andrew Tate. Um,
Who's Bonnie Blue?
she slept with 1,000 dudes, which is
Oh,
really
that chick?
grody. Yeah, not a
So
fan.
is she giving the interview or is he giving the interview?
Some British guys. It's like I think it was supposed to be framed as a debate, but they honestly ended up agreeing on a lot of stuff. Yeah.
That's debatable.
But she says some pretty gross stuff and does some gross stuff. Yikes.
How girty.
Gary, how are you tonight?
Oh, I'm fantastic. I'm dreading this.
Yeah,
You
it's
know,
gonna be rough.
I was raised on a factory farm. I picked up green, rotting, dead chickens for somewhere around 15 years.
So,
And I still got sick to my stomach at different points. So
this is an alpha versus an alpha.
I wouldn't call her an alpha.
this is how far we've fallen as a society. So I've got a couple places that I think I'm gonna stop. I'm not gonna go through this whole thing. It's really crass. So seriously, if you've got kids that are actually watching this, you really need to not. This is pretty vulgar.
I should probably go then, huh?
And as they say, when you stare into the void, or this was Nietzsche, when you stare into the void, sometimes the void stares back at you. So,
Hey, that's actually pretty fun.
Speaking of voids, you know what I mean?
I ain't gonna G-rated. I'm gonna try to stay G-rated in my comments because somebody's got to.
Are you saying we should avoid this?
No, I'm saying there's a great void in Bonnie Blue.
Oh,
He was getting into the blue humor because this is
so
gonna go
avoid
downhill
her.
pretty fast.
Yeah.
But we're still gonna try to keep this around the subject of faith and how we need to react to this as Christians, believers in God, and Andrew Tate's version of Islam. I don't
With his bling.
with his very Muslim bling of a chess piece. I'm not sure how that ties in, but anyway.
I think he's pretty based. You still listen to him, Gary?
I don't listen to him. I have his Real World subscription because there's like business lessons and stuff on that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know anything about it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't dislike Andrew Tate, like, at all. I think the government's given him, they're being very unfair, being awful. And I'm a little annoyed at people being, like, I understand people don't agree with him, but look, first they came for the obnoxious, and then they'll eventually come for you. I mean, the government goes after everybody if you let them, so it does no good to try to just throw this guy under the bus just because you don't like what he has to say.
Yeah.
Even if he's louder than you. I mean, it doesn't matter how loud or quiet you are. They go after everybody in the end. You will comply or you will be thrown into gulag. That's how authoritarianism works. And the British are pretty well communist at this point. We're well on our way. And you have to stand up for people even if you don't like what they have to say. Because that's the only way to prevent totalitarianism, period. So anyway, so we'll start with the first few minutes of this. And then I will try to find the spots that I found. Yeah, earlier. I think that's right. Anyway, okay, so we'll start at the beginning here.
Perfect end result of feminism. That's destructive.
By the time you finish calling me a whore, I'm going to leave this chair with a wet patch.
Rob, the world's bring the asteroid.
Do you think you're a good role model for women?
I'm a clear example of what women have fought for years.
So sleeping with 1,057 men in a day.
It's good work ethic.
We live in clown world, and I just enjoy the circus.
Sex workers help reduce rape rates by over 30%.
Do you think Andrew Tate is guilty of the charges against him?
You like there's no way out for you.
You're so trapped in the matrix.
You're judging me, Andrew.
Feminism is a bullet that a man has shot.
Do you send your son to Bonnet?
Andrew, I do father and son as well. Brother and brother?
It's all disgusting to me.
I heard they call you Cobra Tate. Are you packing a python?
Bonnie.
I would have Hitler to survive.
The entire Western world is women looking for money.
Imagine how powerful our baby would be.
Survivor DNA.
So who's tighter, your wife or me?
Next question, huh?
Let me answer then.
What's happening with Lily? You got Hobie.
I'll tell you the full story.
Cool. Would I Bonnie for all the power in the
This
world?
intro's longer than I remember.
Yeah.
And that's the video,
always-
folks.
Andrew,
Good
what
luck.
do you think of Bonnie Blue sleeping with 1,057 men?
How honest should I be out of 10?
I want you to be honest.
You want me to be honest? Honest?
Yeah, go on.
I don't understand why men sit here and try and lecture you about it. I don't understand why men sit here and say you shouldn't do it. It's
Yeah.
your body, your choice, right? This is the world we now live in. This is
It's called empathy and not wanting to watch a slow car wreck. But anyway,
the end result of feminism. You are the perfect end result of feminism. In the world I believe in.
this is
In a
uncensored.
conservative,
I apologize,
traditionally
guys. This is uncensored.
masculine-
Let me get this. Let me get the window corrected here. I don't know why that one's not working, but anyway, hang on a minute. So, what are the thoughts so far while I'm doing this, guys? You got to fill the dead air while I'm working.
Sorry, bud.
It's all right.
I think he's absolutely right. That this is the end result of feminism. This is what they've wanted, and it has to be played out for them to see the end result. I like this stuff has to happen
Yeah.
because this is what they've been championing for. Championing.
I think
Am I saying that
you're
right?
yeah, you're right. You're right. I'll add my commentary after I get through about 5 minutes of this because I wanted to display what he did here. Thank you for talking while I got that fixed, though.
Sure, man.
masculinely ruled world, a man would be in charge of his daughters until they're handed over to their husbands or boyfriends, and there would be a degree of masculine guidance. But feminism didn't want that. You know, women complain that men don't want to get married. We did actually want to get married when we got obedient virgins, but they disappeared, and they complained about the patriarchy, and they were tired of us giving them a house to live in and kids to raise, and they wanted to make their own choices. So she's making her own choice. That's a fantastic thing.
And Evie
I
here?
actually have a lot of respect for you because you own it and you're honest about it.
What if it was your daughter?
Well, that won't happen.
But she's her own person.
I never said my daughter's her own person. I said I said
Are you
women
gonna
want to
be
be
a-
their own people. But my point is, there's so many women who go to Magaluf for a weekend and do something very similar, and then they come back to England and get with some fucking guy and start asking for presents from him and talking about how they deserve a traditional relationship and they want to get married and they want a Christmas present and all this bullshit. Most women do exactly what Bonnie does. I don't see you any different than most women. And I'm not saying that in a degrading way.
Most women don't sleep with 1,057 men in a day.
1,000? Does it fucking matter?
I think it does.
I don't really think it does.
So the-
It's
there's
all
no-
disgusting to me. If I met a woman and she said, I just sucked a dick yesterday, I'd say, well, I find you repulsive. I don't want to sleep with you. Goodbye.
What, so you're only going after virgins?
Well, it's not about only going after virgins, but I think if you're a straight man, the idea of having a bunch of men fuck a woman that you're with is pretty repulsive.
But everyone has a past.
But see,
Wouldn't
this
you
is the
prefer
kind
your
of
girl
shit
to have
white people say.
experience?
I don't know what's wrong with you people. Everyone has a past. That's not acceptable. In fact, let's analyze that. Everyone has a past. You're right. Everyone does have a past. It's true. But isn't the primary objective of a man to find a woman with as little past as possible? Would you argue that's one of the precursors to finding a wife?
Depends how-
Considering that wives were supposed to be virgins. This was the deal. The reason I'm proud of Bonnie, and I am genuinely proud of you, I like Bonnie. I like what she's doing. Because the deal was...
Are you not like contradicting yourself here?
In what way?
Well, you're proud of her sleeping with 1,057 guys, but women should be virgins.
No, I'm saying that the social contract, the construct of society that made family function was women were obedient virgins and they found a man who provided for them and they listened to that man. Women have then said, we don't like the patriarchy. We're tired of being provided for. We're tired of being taken care of. We don't want to listen to anybody. We want to make our own decisions. That was women and feminism that ended the traditional family unit. And now women can make their own decisions. So I'm glad that Bonnie's making her own decision.
Yeah,
I'm
because
not here to
people
tell you not to
say
do it.
I take women back 100 years. I'm like, no, I'm the clear example of how to be empowered. I use my body. I do what I want, when I want. And this is the thing you've been banging on about for years. And when I get hate, like when I click on the comments of these women that are like, oh, you're taking us back 100 years, then in their bio it says stay-at-home mom of two. I'm thinking, what the fuck was you rooting for?
That's
because
right.
you have just stayed
That's
at
right,
home.
Bonnie. See, this is the future.
Yeah.
This is the future. This is fantastic. It's exactly what Western society's headed to. So why are we going to sit here and pretend this is not? Why are we going to sit here and pretend that most women who go on girls' holidays aren't doing something similar to what Bonnie does, just because it's not on camera? Why are we going to sit here and pretend that these men who walk around with their wives in the pub in England, they're like, oh, my wife, yeah, everyone has a past. Oh, no, she's done the same shit. What's the difference? Who gives a fuck? Right?
So, Cody, what are your thoughts?
I I mean, I think, politically, it's the shifting of the Overton window. Like we have to come to this point so that we can go back to the way it was at some point.
Yeah.
You know.
See, I had a suspicion at the beginning of this. Now I'm not so sure, but I had a suspicion at the beginning of the interview that he was actually mocking her and she didn't realize it. But I think he's just being sardonic, or he's being like sardonic, that might be the word, about the way that life is now. It's like, this is what you people wanted.
Yep.
This is where it was going to lead. You know, it's a little defeatist 100%. And nihilistic, though. I don't think he's advocating for it, but I think
to
he
make
is
it
just
go away, you have to accept it, right?
I don't know. That's a good question. Let me think about that. To make it go away, you have to accept it. I think people have to accept that's where we are.
Like,
I don't think they have to accept it indefinitely. What you resist persists.
Yeah.
So we have to embrace debauchery so the next generation sees our lives implode and decides not to do it.
Not embrace it. Let it play out.
How is that not embracing it?
Because if you're non-responsive, I guess. You're just. I mean, it's like if your kid's throwing a tantrum, you could try to stop them, but that's not going to help, right? You have to let them throw their fit so that they can see that they're being ridiculous.
Yeah. So you would liken.
So like in this example of Bonnie Blue, like this is feminism at its peak. Like this is women throwing a fit and saying, I want, freedom or whatever whatever point she's trying to make. And this is the end result. And you got to let her throw a fit,
Yeah, but you're operating under the position that what she did was bad. And that's what I'm talking about. That's what I mean when I say I think Andrew Tate's mocking her, because he's saying, this is horrible, but this is what you get. And she's sitting there going, yeah, I'm an empowered woman. Yeah, look how empowered I am.
She doesn't see it yet.
Yeah, she doesn't realize that he's saying this is wrong, this is horrible, but this is what you.
Different. That's the word I was looking
for.
he's
he's like resigned to the way society is.
Which is the position you should take, I believe.
I don't know. I believe in raging against the dying of the light, I suppose.
No.
You fight even when the fight is futile.
Man,
I disagree.
Facts.
I disagree. I think that it's not just about outcomes. It's about trying to do the right thing and persisting in doing the right thing even when the fight is futile, because there is an after. You're going to be judged by the Almighty in that after. And so you should try to do the right thing and fight the momentum of the culture and try to warn the culture, because you do have an obligation to your fellow man as much as possible. And yeah, the fight might be futile, but that's not really the point. We don't do the right thing because we want the right outcome.
I think I fundamentally disagree with you, Gary.
Why?
Because you can't change anybody's mind, dude. They have to change their own mind. God has to change their mind. You can't do it.
Yes, but you're still assuming that the goal is the outcome.
And you're taking the moral high ground by saying this is right and this is wrong.
Well, is there not right and wrong? Does it not exist?
I don't believe that we're the arbiters of right and wrong. I believe God is the truth. Like we
Do you believe right and wrong is knowable?
No.
I think it is. In some things. There are some ambiguous situations, but I do think in some things, particularly this situation, right and wrong is knowable.
Yeah, but it's not. We're not good enough to point that out to someone else.
So we have to be
you
perfect.
You can know it in your heart, sure, but you can't tell somebody what's right and what's wrong, because they're not going to listen to you. Why would they?
It's not about them listening. It's about planting seeds for the right time.
That's why people listen to Jesus.
It's not about persuading people. It's about planting seeds for the right time, because you know what's going to happen to that person. You know that they're going to wake up like in her case, she's going to wake up. Yeah, you do. You know she's going to wake up at 47. She's going to want different things because she's in a different season of life, because we live in different seasons. And she's going to regret what she's done in the past, and she's going to shift her priorities, and it's going to be harder for her to get the life that she wants. In fact, Andrew Tate says later in this, whatever you do, don't turn to religion. Don't, just use the cross and say, oh, I'm better now. Somebody accept me. Don't weaponize religion or whatever, which I understand to an extent. But I'm also like, well, if she's sincere in her conversion, she should be allowed to, actually accept repentance and not just say, well, this was the life I chose. I just got to live with it. I don't believe that. So I think that we do make the case, even though nobody's going to agree with us, because it's not about getting them to agree with us. It's about planting seeds for the right time, because these guys act like they're saying something new, but it's a rerun. We've heard this crap a million times.
Planting seeds here?
I think you're right. He is.
By being indifferent, he's planting the most.
He's not being
effective
indifferent, though.
seed.
He's being sardonic. There's a difference. This is like a modest proposal. I don't know if you ever read that essay, but this is like a modest proposal by Jonathan Swift. And for those who don't know, a modest proposal was this essay. I don't remember the economic circumstances around it, but the bottom line was they had some issue with populations in Britain. And so Jonathan Swift, to basically point out the indifference people were having during the conversation, was like, well, you know what? We should just eat babies. It would be so much more economically feasible if we just ate babies. Can you imagine how easy it would be to feed everybody if we ate babies? And he was being sarcastic. He was demonstrating absurdity by being absurd. And I think that's kind of what he's doing. He's just basically going, this is what you asked for. This is what you wanted. And in that respect, yeah, you're right. He is planting seeds. So I'm not condemning Andrew Tate here. I guess I'm mainly going after this sense of futility that's kind of buried within his statement, although he is right to make the statement, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I think that this kind of tactic, although there's a part of me that does like it, I do think it risks going into nihilism. Eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we all die type of thing. And I don't think that's necessarily
No, because
healthy.
he's not partaking in it. He still thinks it's...
Right, yeah, you're right. I don't think
Personally,
he's
he thinks
partaking
it's
in it.
disgusting, right? So it's like,
Yeah.
he's not... He's like, I'm not going to be part of this, but, have fun.
Yeah, but the line between what he's doing and where it could go is kind of... I think it needs to be pointed out. It doesn't necessarily mean he's in danger of it or anything, but... Yeah, I am worried about this kind of sense of nihilism, because we should fight against this. We shouldn't say it's okay. And that's kind of the point he's making. It's like, this is what you asked for, so if you don't change it, this is what you're going to continue to get. Mm-hmm. That's kind of his point. And so I think in his way, he is appealing for a fight. Like, we don't need to accept this. We don't need to let this be normal. I don't think she understands that's what's going on. But he's just kind of embracing the absurdity of the moment, I suppose. So to make the point. But gosh, there was something else I was going to say, but I've lost my train of thought, so I don't suppose it matters.
Sorry, buddy.
Trevor, you got any thoughts?
Negative.
Well, make one up.
That he who is without sin casts the first stone.
Oh! Good man. You remembered where I was going to go with it. Okay. You got me back on course, good sir. Thank you.
Well done.
Yes, well done. So, I was going to ask Cody, when it comes to not casting stones and all the rest of it, should we be perfect before we start criticizing other people's behavior? Like, where's the line between having a flaw that we know is a flaw, but still trying to point out other people's flaws, not trying to elevate ourselves, but like saying, hey, this thing, broadly speaking, is wrong? Should we make moral commentaries at all, since we're all fallen?
I think you should only make moral commentaries when it's about yourself and your own growth. Because that's the only way people are going to accept it. Is like, you have to lead by example if you want to lead. So, I mean, you could talk about, your own behavior and how it's wrong and how you can grow from it and stuff, but you can't, I just don't think it works when you point out other people's behavior, because they're automatically going to think of how you're wrong. Like,
Right.
they're automatically going to point out your flaws.
Right.
What if you never want to lead?
Beta.
Beta.
Well, Trevor, what do you think about that? What Cody just said.
About beta?
No, about his whole idea about you need to get yourself together in the name of leadership. Is that right, Cody? Is that kind of what you were getting at?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to lead by example. I mean,
Yeah.
you can't tell people what to do if you act like shit.
Fair enough.
Amen.
You
There
agree
you
with
go.
that?
Yeah.
I agree with it too, but I would add that, and this is something
You're
I
not
noticed in the
allowed to
interview. I know. But this is something Andrew Tate said in the interview, and I would just want to add that, we all have flaws, and we all have issues that we deal with. Everybody's a hypocrite. Everybody. But we still should say, maybe not pointing out people's individual flaws, but we should still say that is wrong. Because one of the problems in our society in particular is that we believe that basically, for example, all your sexual impulses are you. You know what I mean? Like, they're just like, you have to indulge your impulses because that's just who you are. And so there's this kind of culture in our society that goes from we should be patient with one another because we all have issues to we just need to embrace our fallen nature. And people, yeah, well, that's where we're at. People say we're all bad, so why bother criticizing over anything at all? To which I would say, I'm like, look, you still have to acknowledge things are evil. Like, there's an old man in you that needs to die. Part of the story of Christianity is acknowledging that in order to be a good person, there are dead limbs that have to be cut off, eyes that need to be gouged out, hands that need to be severed. You are in a pursuit of bettering yourself, of being like Christ, and so you are at war with yourself. So you should still try to be better. You should still try to improve. You should be constantly in the pursuit of killing the old man. Because you can't just say that this old man is who I am and it's all, because the line between who I am and this is all I'll ever be is razor thin. You have to constantly be at war with yourself to kill those parts of you that are wrong. But that requires accepting and identifying the things of you that are wrong.
What if you don't identify those things as you?
Well, they could be like demonic
isn't there-
impulses, if you want to say. If you're entertaining
like,
them,
a
that's part of
difference
your old
between
man,
you?
arguably speaking. But yeah, I mean, I would argue that in a sense, those bad impulses aren't you. Like, the way I was understood, the way I was taught, is that a person is basically three things. You have the flesh, which is kind of where the devil talks. You have the spirit, which is like how the Holy Spirit, the conscience, guides you. And then you have this governor that's choosing between the two. The real you, so to speak, is the governor making the choices between those two competing voices. So, for example, C.S. Lewis gives this example.
Okay.
Yeah, he gives...
I've always thought of it as just a dichotomy, like your flesh and your spirit.
It's actually tri. Like, there's three parts. Which is why I don't... That's all right. Which is why I don't like Freud, because I think Freud just took a lot of Christian concepts and relabeled them into psychobabble. But anyway. So C.S. Lewis gives this analogy. He says, okay, there's a dog drowning in a creek. There's a part of you that knows that it's right to save the dog, and you should save the dog. There's another part of you that doesn't want to save the dog because you're going to get your clothes wet, and it's going to be a headache. And then there's this third part of you that has to choose between those two voices. And every decision in life is like that. And so you can't be a human without having these three essential parts of you. So...
Okay. I guess I look at life in the sense of there's not... Yeah, I don't see the governor. I see, like, flow state and, I mean, for lack of a better term, like, there's, like, your initial impulse would be to save the dog, right? And then there's that thought that comes in, oh, but your clothes are going to get wet. Like, that's the demon. So I see the initial impulse as, I think impulse is a bad word, but the initial, like, reaction to a situation that's happening in your life, that's the state that you need to be in. You shouldn't worry about anything.
So let me see if I understand this correctly. So you're saying that the good impulse is us and the bad impulse is something else?
The good impulse would be like God's will,
Okay.
like God's plan. Like, why would you be there where that dog is at the same time that it's drowning? Like, because you're meant to save it.
Okay. how does the person make the choice if the because it sounds like you're saying what I'm saying, but you're not wanting to acknowledge the governor. Like what I'm talking about is the classic devil and angel archetype on your shoulder. You remember those cartoons where you had like the cartoon Garfield angel, the devil Garfield, and then like the actual Garfield? Like that's how Christianity views the man. And so the real you is constantly choosing between the devil and the angel. If like the original us was the angel, then obviously the angel would always win the battle because that's the real person. If it was the devil, then obviously you would always choose the evil. There has to be a third part of you because sometimes people choose evil and sometimes people choose good. We're not 100% one or the other.
I think choosing the evil is you identifying with the flesh or being of the earth.
But isn't there a governor that has to do the identifying?
I don't think so. I think that's a misnomer.
How
Which
so?
may be why I so fundamentally disagree with the Trinity.
Well, how so? Explain it. Why doesn't that work?
Because the flow state is God's will. Like, your purpose is presented to you automatically, and your doubts are the demons that stop you.
But doesn't there have to be a core part of you that's like moving in and out of that flow state?
No, I think the demons just drag you back out of the flow state.
So do we not actually make our own choices? Like it's just demons compelling us to do bad things?
Mm-hmm.
So when this girl slept with 1,000 men, it wasn't actually her doing it. It was the demons making her do it?
Yeah.
So are people just like inherently good or bad?
She's identified with the demons.
But
she's like, this is me. I am a sex worker. I am a whore. I am a blah, 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 blah.
I guess I'm confused because there's an I there. I am this. I am that. I am choosing to identify as such. That in particular requires, in my opinion, that statement by itself requires three entities. I, the thing I'm identifying with, and versus the thing I could be.
I don't see the three.
Okay, so I am a whore.
Okay.
I could
She's
be
identifying as that.
I could be a virgin. There is a dichotomy between the two. I am choosing one over the other. Is that not three parts?
No.
Why not?
Because if she didn't choose to identify with that, she would be in the flow state. Like the natural path. God's will.
Yeah,
But
I mean, we agree that there's two
her life
options.
identifying with demons.
Yeah, but we're talking about two potential options, and then there has to be this I that's choosing between those two options.
I don't think so.
Well, like by your logic, she wouldn't have any accountability because she has no autonomy.
I think what we're hitting on is like Jesus said, not my will but the Father's. Like he wasn't identifying with anything except the Father's will. Like it's like he's like a conduit.
Okay, I don't know if I agree with that, but let's take that analogy. Wouldn't that also imply that there is a him, there is his will, and then there's the Father's will? Now, later he says I and the Father are one, which kind of negates that. But point being is there's a distinction between the two wills and the self that's choosing to identify with one over the other. That's three parts.
The man's will is not the man's will. The man's will, what he calls his will, is the demons living through him.
Can he get rid of the demons?
Yeah.
So there has to be a third person that can do the getting rid of.
No, you just don't identify with them.
How is that not getting rid of them?
It is.
Exactly. So you have to get rid of them. The you has to do the getting rid of. Like you have to reject the demons. That means there's the demon, there's the you rejecting the demon, and then there's you picking the other path that's independent of the demon.
But you're not picking the path. That's the thing. It just happens.
Then how is that person accountable? Like, how is there a will
They're
there?
not. That's
How-
why they're within God's will.
But they would be held accountable if they were in the demon's will.
Yes.
So there still has to be
Because
somebody
they're
being held
assuming
accountable.
responsibility for themselves.
Yes, so there has to be a self that is assuming accountability.
But not if you give God the accountability. Not my will, but the Father's.
But you still have to choose to give God the accountability in that case. Like the point is there is a you choosing one option over the other.
Trevor, give me something.
You always have the option to choose right or wrong.
Who is you?
You are you.
Who's you?
You are you.
But who is Trevor?
Well, I don't know.
Right. Exactly.
Exactly.
How does that make your point? He doesn't have to know
Gary,
who
who
he
are
is
you?
to acknowledge, I'm Gary.
That's your name. Who are
I
you?
think, therefore I am.
Who are you?
It's
Describe
a
yourself.
stupid question. I'm a Christian.
No, it's not.
I'm a Christian. I am a soul. I am a soul who lives in a body. I have a wife. I love my wife.
So you're a husband. You're identifying as a husband. You're
Yeah.
a Christian. You're identifying as a Christian.
Yeah. I am all of
Okay.
those things. I could hypothetically be one and not the other, but there's still an I that has taken on those various identities.
But there doesn't have to be.
But the
There is no
option
spouse.
exists, and that's the point.
But that's the demons.
The options are the demons. So I could choose I could choose God,
in
and
the
the demons
world.
are compelling me to choose God.
No.
So there still
You
has
don't
to be an
choose God.
I.
You stop choosing the demons.
There still is an independent entity doing the stopping.
I think you both are on the same page. It's just a different part of each page.
There's no you, Gary. There's no me. There's no Trevor. We're conduits of God's will if we allow that.
Conduits are a noun that are
You're being-
independent of God's will, which is also a noun. The sentence
say,
structure in which
"I
you
am."
chose demands there to be multiple components to this concept.
The what? Say that
The
again.
sentence structure you chose demands that there are multiple components to this concept you are describing. There are two nouns. There is
3.
I am a conduit. Conduit is one now. God's will is a separate noun. I am a conduit of God's will. That's two separate nouns. Technically three. I, component, God's will.
Do you think it's sacrilegious to identify as I am?
If you mean it in the Torah's sense, then yeah.
No, if you just say I am, I exist.
No, because English does that all the time.
The I am is the word.
I am. I exist. That's it.
Yeah, that's
When you
fine.
start identifying with things of the world, you're of the world. When you just exist, you're a conduit of God's will, which is what Jesus was.
That doesn't, I don't understand what you're talking about when you say that.
I don't know how else to explain it.
I think you're trying to, this is what I'm hearing, and I don't know if I'm understanding, so I guess that's why we're pursuing this conversation, because I'm not sure. I feel like we're either talking past each other or something, but I'm going to try to understand it. So it sounds like there's no free will in your worldview. So is that the first aspect of what you're saying?
Yeah, I don't believe in free will.
Okay, so it sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't want to mischaracterize what it is you're getting at. Let's imagine you've got an interstellar tide, so let's say a tide of light, and you've got particles, photons, making up that light. The light beam is like God's will. The photons making up the light beam are also God's will, but at the same time, they're also you. And the demons are reaching up from the void and snatching the photons and pulling them out of God's will.
No.
Okay, so then I'm misunderstanding what you're saying. So we need to hit this at a different
Like
angle.
The light that you're talking about. So this light ray coming.
Okay.
The photons are all God's will, but when you identify with the world, when you identify with these labels,
Okay.
they're like shields against that light ray, because you're enwrapping yourself in this like cocoon of, this describes me, right? This is me. So it doesn't allow you to see the light.
Well, it sounds like you're just saying it's bad to take on labels.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying.
I'm saying I'm not even talking on that level. I'm talking that there has to be a you that chooses or rejects the labels.
But how is there a you if you don't identify with anything?
Well, you would be saying that you're basically God under your analogy.
I don't think so.
You don't think so? I don't see how there couldn't be a you. Like, there would have to be a third component, some will, that is making choices. Some independent will that is
There's
making
God's
choices.
will or the will of the demons that you identify with.
But you're saying you identify. That means you have a choice. And Trevor
Right,
is holding up scissors for some reason. I don't know why.
I caught a spider.
You caught
Sorry.
a spider with scissors.
It was bugging me.
Ah,
Sorry, go on.
I don't know if we sound like idiots or we're having a philosophical conversation, but we're going to limp through this one way or the
I
other.
don't know either.
So my basic worldview is that you have an independent will, and then you're making choices, good choices versus bad choices with that will. All three parts of those are you, because you want all of those things at different times. Sometimes you want to be the good guy, sometimes you want to be the bad guy, but at the end of the day, you are going to have to make a choice of one or the other.
I don't feel like there's a you until you start identifying with things.
Well, by that logic, it would be a good thing to identify with things then, because that would create the you.
Yeah, but you don't want that. You want God's will.
Yes, but is it not possible that the you can choose God's will?
Mm-mm.
Why not?
Because if there's a you, you're identifying with stuff.
How does that deal with what I'm talking about?
I don't understand why you don't understand.
I don't understand because you're trying to like say there's a. It sounds like you're trying to say there's a choice without saying there's a choice. And I'm saying that if there is such a thing as a choice, there has to be a you making the choice.
I think there's only bad choices, I think is what I'm saying. There's only bad choices. Like you're too dumb to make choices.
Okay, I just don't see how that works functionally, because it's like if you choose to remain in the flow state, God's will, i.e., then you're still choosing to remain in that flow state, in which case you had a will that made a choice. If you choose to let the demons take you, you still chose to let the demons take you. So in either scenario, there is a you making a choice.
I think it's literally what we were talking about a minute ago. It's the indifference. Like when you're indifferent, God's will takes place, whether you like it or not.
Yeah, but you have to choose to be indifferent.
You have to choose to be indifferent.
Like, I get all riled up about this politics stuff, which is one of the reasons
But
why I
why?
don't like to talk about it. So, I mean, I could make the choice to be indifferent about it, but I would still have to make the choice
Why do you get riled up about the politics?
because I believe in right and wrong, and I think these people are wrong about different things, or some people are right and some people are wrong about different things. I have a passion for right and wrong. I want to do what God wants me to do, and that matters to me. So I care a lot about doing the right thing.
What makes you think you know right and wrong? Why do you think you have the moral high ground?
Well, mainly because I read the Bible. I do the best I can to study those things, and based on my best knowledge, this particular avenue, be it, let's say, choice A is the right thing to do over choice B. It is better to be married versus sleeping with 1,000 people. One option
So
is
you're better than
inherently
Bonnie
better
Brit?
than... No, not inherently as a person, but I made a better choice. Like, in the eyes of God, the you that is me and the you that is her are in equal standing. God loves us both equally.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I can make a better choice than her, but God will continue to love us both equally regardless of those choices because we have those choices because we have the same inherent value, i.e. we are his creation. Because we are his creation, he loves us equally regardless of our choices, but we still make the choices.
So I'm just gonna say, I think you think you have moral high ground because you identify as a Christian.
Okay, why do you
That's an
think that?
identity.
Why do you think that?
Because that's what you said.
There's a difference between being a moral high ground, though, and God loving me.
I don't know.
Let's say you're right. No, it's right. God loves us equally. And look, as far as
Yeah,
morality
that's
goes,
right.
the reason God wants us to do the right thing is because we were designed with specific functions for specific purposes. When we act in a way that is not in accordance with that design, we damage ourselves. So it's not like I am trying to prove myself worthy before God. I can't, because God loves me to the maximal degree already. And it doesn't matter the choices I make.
Stop trying.
But there is an optimal way to live versus an unoptimal way to live, and that unoptimal way is inherently damaging to the person. So if somebody makes choices that are quote-unquote morally bad, it's not morally bad because God is going to love them less. That's not how that works. It's morally bad because that person is destroying themselves, and God loves that person because that person is his creation, and he doesn't want to see his own creation destroy itself any more than a parent would want to see their kid commit suicide.
I will be right back.
All right.
Okay.
So it's not about being a better or worse person. I mean, I'm just trying to make sure people don't hurt themselves.
Yeah, but that's not your job.
I feel like it is. I feel like if I don't try to help people, then I'm apathetic. And I think apathy is evil.
If you don't try to help people, it's apathetic.
Like, if you look in Ezekiel, for example, it says one of the things it says is that the sin of Sodom and Gomorrah wasn't homosexuality. It was being overfed and unconcerned. I believe being unconcerned for your fellow man is a sin. Here's another example.
I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, well, here's another example. If I turn the other cheek when I am struck, I am a Christian. If I turn the other cheek when my neighbor is struck, I am a coward. Because I have an obligation to do unto my neighbors, I would have them do unto me. And if I was getting beat up, I would want somebody to help me, so I have an obligation to go help that other person.
I don't understand your argument.
Well, you were arguing that I had some sort of moral high ground, and I would say I'm not making these appeals to morality because I think I'm better than her or that I've made better choices than her from a approval of God standpoint. I'm saying I make these appeals to morality because I want her to be maximally happy. I don't know her. Because that's my obligation as a Christian. I have to love people with the agape love of God. I have to love people to the maximal degree. That means helping them even if the task is futile and they're intent on destroying themselves. I have to help people. I have to help her if I can. Maybe I can't. And maybe I have limitations in
your
that.
way of helping her is judging her. That's backwards. Whereas like Andrew Tate
Define
in this
judging.
situation,
Define judging.
you're saying, hey, what you did was bad. Who are
Is a
you?
kid taking an entire box of Benadryl bad?
Is a kid taking an entire box of Benadryl bad?
If the kid does something out of ignorance that is going to take that child's life, do you or do
It's
you
not out of
not?
ignorance. She knows exactly what she's doing.
Let's say the kid doesn't know. Maybe they don't recognize the
Okay, the
label.
kid might not be, but kids are kids. Like if it's your kid, it's your responsibility.
Okay,
teach
well,
them.
when it
It's not
comes
your
to
responsibility
morality,
to teach
a
them.
lot of people don't know what's right and wrong, and they do things that are destructive, and it's our job to try to educate people if we can. Even if they don't listen, we still need to try because we have an obligation to help people. It's not about being a better person. It's about trying to make sure that person is happy when they're 47. No, not at all.
Bonnie Blue would listen to you
No.
or Andrew Tate more?
Probably Andrew Tate more. And I would argue that Andrew Tate's being much more effective because he's being sardonic. I think he's talking
he
to her
doesn't-
in a way that hopefully she'll understand in the future.
Yeah.
I would
he's not
certainly
judging.
argue he's being more effective. Yeah, he's not judging her in the cliche liberal sense. Like, judging means condemnation of any kind. And yeah, it's true that if you condemn people, they typically don't listen. But somebody still has to say what right and wrong is. Even if it's just on a collective broad level, because somebody
she
has to
knows.
understand what the standard
You
bearer
think
is.
she doesn't know, dude?
Yeah, she knows because somebody at some point taught it to her and she rejected
Okay,
it.
then why is it your job? Why are you taking that responsibility?
Because in the same way that God knocks on the door of the heart of every man over and over and over and over and over again, the same way that he chooses to try to save people until the day they die, so too must Christians try to say what is right and wrong, even if people don't listen, because since God worked so hard to save us, we have to work hard to save other people. And yes, we fail, but we don't do the right thing because we want the right outcome. We do the right thing because it is right. We have a meeting with our Maker, and he wants us to love other people the same way we are loved.
Unconditionally, without judgment?
Unconditionally. That doesn't mean without judgment. You can say that your kid is doing something wrong and still love them as your child.
Yeah. But Bonnie Blue's not your kid.
No, but God gave us an order to love our fellow man as if they are our kids to the maximal degree, to care for everybody as much as we possibly can, given our limited capabilities.
Where is that?
When God says you should love your neighbor as yourself, that's where that is.
I don't know, dude. I would still argue that what Andrew Tate is doing is more effective than you caring so much.
I agree. I don't disagree
So-
with you there. I do think it is more effective. And I would never
why
have
is
this
your way better?
conversation with her. Why is my way better?
Yeah.
I'm not saying my way is better than Andrew Tate's.
I mean, you are. I mean, I'm arguing on the side of Andrew Tate that him being.
I never
indifferent
was in
is-
opposition to Andrew Tate.
Right, but you're saying I need to help this person. Like,
I need to
no, you
help
don't.
everybody, not this person
You need to be
specifically.
indifferent.
I need to help people by saying what is right and wrong. Somebody has to say what is right and wrong. Somebody has to be the quote unquote, from Andrew Tate's perspective, somebody has to be the guy screaming that traditionalism is the way to go. From his perspective, it's Islam. Well, in his worldview, somebody's got to be the imam saying that Islam is the right way. That ain't Andrew Tate, but somebody's got to do that. And everybody's called to different things, and they have different purposes. And they're, as the words of Paul, some people are meant to build the foundation or water the field. Some people are meant to till the earth. Some people watch the crop grow. Some people reap. Other people do the sowing. We all have our own job.
Mm-hmm.
So no, I'm not complaining
who
about what
determines that
Andrew
job?
Tate did. Well, God, and presumably he
Okay,
does
not
that
you,
through
right?
his... Yes, not me. But presumably that is done through our talents and our skill sets and what we're good at. Andrew Tate is very charismatic. He's very charming. He's very outspoken. And he is very effective at what he is doing. And he's done a good job at it. So I have no complaints of what Andrew Tate is doing. The only thing I meant earlier was that this kind of thing that he's mentioning, this tactic he's taking, can go too far into nihilism. That was my only point.
You take a side.
Yeah, and people do.
Yeah, but he's not.
No, he's not. He's not doing it. I wasn't saying he was defaulting to nihilism. I'm saying it's a risk of the tactic he's using, but that doesn't mean he's doing it.
Yeah. I just think he's not identifying with either side, which is my
he's
and that's the most effective route. And I think that's the route that God wants us to take, is to not take sides.
It's the most effective route probably for her. I don't know if it's the most effective route for everybody. People require different things because people are in different phases of life. And my tactic would be more effective for some. His tactic would be more effective for others. We all have to play to our skill sets to try to reach as many people as we can.
I don't know, man. I've tried both in my life, and when I wanted to help everybody, it didn't help.
Well, maybe that's just because it's your circle of influence. Maybe it's because of the people you associate with. That doesn't mean people are the same everywhere.
Okay.
I would argue that what I do, talking about the love of God versus, morality being like destructive versus constructive or whatever, when somebody is like at the point of the rock bottom in addiction and they're trying to climb out of it, I think this kind of messaging is particularly helpful. She ain't there. She hasn't hit her rock bottom. Who knows if she ever will? But when somebody does, I think what I'm saying is particularly effective. But not everybody's in that place. There's no way this speech would be effective for her, not at all. I wouldn't expect it to. I would say his tactic's much more effective for her. But people are not the same.
All right. I mean, you keep trying to find that person. But
What are you talking about? I have found that person. You don't know who I've helped and who I haven't helped.
okay.
Okay. So, anyway. All right, so we're going to move on to 135. And we'll listen to here.
Home, and your woman doesn't listen to you, and she doesn't suck your dick, and you're paying all these taxes, and your kids ignore you, and they just watch YouTube, and you're not the man of anything, why are you going to stand up and rebel on the street? You don't give a shit. You've lost all vested interest in protection. Your protective instinct has been neutered. You're a eunuch. That is why feminism is used. This is the point I'm making about certain groups of men using women as a conduit to destroy other groups of men. Women are not the gun. Women are the bullet. Men still hold the guns. Feminism is a bullet that a man has shot. This is what most people don't understand about all of these ideals. And what I'm saying is, the society we have built has encouraged women to be as promiscuous, as rebelling, as open, as sexual, and to get as much money as possible. And Bonnie has just played the game the best and won the game. The game is chess. She's a grandmaster at it. You can't complain about the grandmaster. You have to complain about the game of chess. So it's completely asinine for anybody to ever give Bonnie a hard time about anything she's doing ever. When in fact, she's just the best at the game that's currently being played. Because 99% of women are trying to do the same thing as her, which is use their pussy to get some money.
And that doesn't bother you hearing that?
No, it's factual. It's the truth. So why could I be offended? If you're offended by something that's factual, then change it. If I was offended by calling a prostitute and slut slag, then I should change that. But how can I sit there and say I'm ever offended by anyone telling me that what's the truth?
And Rob, and I want to make something clear. I really do try and ground myself in absolute logic in all ways. And that's why I'm extremely hard on myself. I've said to you in previous podcasts that what happened to me about jail and all this shit, it was me. I take absolute responsibility for everything that's ever happened to me. I'm not a person who blames anyone else. Considering women just want status and money, don't think I haven't thunk about the fact about the women who say they love me. I'm not dumb. I love you so much. I love you. I love you. Of course. I love that you're attractive. I love that you're attractive and you do as I say. And you love that I'm very famous and very rich and I give you a lifestyle. Now you say you'd love me if I didn't give you the lifestyle. But if I didn't give you the lifestyle, how would I even be me? How am I me with no money? How am I me with no status? How am I me with no power? Who am I then? I'm a different person. So I know you're with me because you get things, and I'm with you because I get things. It's transactional. All relationships are transactional. This podcast is a transaction. This is how things work. So I'm not stupid enough to believe the women who say they love me, even though they say they love me, and even though they mean it when they say it, they're not smart enough to analyze that they are doing a transaction because they don't think of it that way. They just feel love. Oh, I love you so much. Oh, you love me so much. We're just cruising in the Lambo and we're just in, oh, you're just, all of a sudden you say you love me. They don't even realize what they're doing. I do. I understand the world very well.
But isn't love a human need?
Love is a transaction.
It's a human need.
Women love who protect and provide for them, whether they're the French soldier or the German soldier, sir.
So that's what I wanted to talk about.
Okay.
Agree or disagree? Love is a transaction.
I think I agree with him. I think I agree with him. Because I think the love that you're talking about it's of the flesh. It's like, it's thoughts and feelings. It is part of the flesh. Like, and Jesus says the heart is wicked. So it's like, I think God's love and our love they're two different things.
So you would say that would you say all human love is transactional and God's love is not transactional?
I would say God's love comes through us sometimes, but the typical emotions that we feel are of the flesh and by way of that transactional.
I think I disagree with Andrew there. I think we're called to love people in a way that is non-transactional. We start out loving people.
Yeah, we're called that. That's God's love. But,
Yeah.
I mean, like us achieving that is very difficult.
We have to be shown it first, I would argue.
Yeah.
But
That's why Christ is so important.
and it's why unconditional love, and that's why saved by grace through faith and once saved, always saved is so important. Because if you believe that even your relationship with the Almighty is transactional, then every relationship in your life is always going to be transactional. It could be no other way. This is the importance of Christianity. This is the importance of forgiveness. This is the importance of God loving you no matter how stupid you are. And this is also the great gamble between Satan and God, which is why I pulled up Job 1. So allow me to read Job chapter 1. Okay. Let me scroll down and try to find where Satan comes into the story. So, and the Lord said unto Satan, Hast thou considered my servant Job, that there is none like him in the earth, a perfect and upright man, one that feareth God and escheweth evil? Then Satan answered the Lord and said, Doth Job fear God for naught? Hast not thou made a hedge about him, and about his house, and about all that he hath on every side? Thou hast blessed the work of his hands, and his substance is increased in the land. But put forth thine hand now, and touch all that he hath, and he will curse thee to thy face. And the Lord said unto Satan, Behold, all that he hath is in thy power. Only upon himself put not forth thine hand. So Satan went forth from the presence of the Lord, and there was a day when his sons and his daughters were eating and drinking wine in their eldest brother's house. And there came a messenger unto Job and said, The oxen were plowing, and the asses feeding beside them. And the Sabaeans fell upon them and took them away. Yea, they have slain the servants with the edge of the sword, and I only am escaped alone to tell you. And the story goes on from there. And Job's response to all this was, Then Job arose and rent his mantle and shaved his head and fell down upon the ground and worshipped and said, Naked came I out of my mother's womb, and naked shall I return hither. The Lord gave, and the Lord hath taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. In all this Job sinned not, nor charged God foolishly. So the story of Job is basically that very gamble. Is every relationship among men simply transactional? Or can a man love somebody, love God, in spite of the negative repercussions of that affection. So, it's an interesting question. I would say that a man starts out with transactional relationships, but he can learn to be more.
Yeah,
So,
sure.
that was my other criticism of Andrew Tate. Well, really my only one, if I were to have one. So,
Yeah, I mean, I would say that's the end goal, but I mean, if you're operating through the flesh, you know, I mean, like the flesh is all you're gonna ever understand.
I'd agree with that.
So I don't know.
So, Trevor, sorry.
Bonnie, Bonnie did say something else about,
Want me to pull it up?
I don't know, might be stupid.
That's wrong.
So she talks about sex workers and how, like, if she were to, she talks about Andrew Tate sending his son to her, for, like, to lose his virginity, because she would instruct him on how to treat a woman's body. And I think that it's interesting. It's an interesting thought. I mean, like, in a perfect world, you know, two, 18-year-old kids take each other's virginity and, like, get married and have babies, and, you know, in a perfect world. But that's not reality most of the time.
I would argue that.
So
Sorry, go on.
it's an interesting question to pose, if it would, like, to train a boy to take care of a woman, you know? I don't know. I just thought it was...
I think when it comes to being one flesh, suffering is the point. You're supposed to be virgins because neither one of you is supposed to know what you're doing. It's not just about pleasure.
I agree.
It's about learning together. And it's about building that relationship through learning together. That's the idea. And that's part of the misnomer with all this, is they think the goal is to be happy, or a lot of these people think the goal is to be happy. And I don't think Andrew Tate thinks that. But a lot of people believe the goal is to be happy. No, it's learning to suffer together, learning to be one flesh. And by doing that, you will eventually become happy. But
Yeah.
that's all I have to say about that.
Yeah.
Trevor, what are your thoughts?
Joy unspeakable.
There you go. I think we're going to wrap it up here, boys and girls.
It's getting late.
Yep. This is the last episode of the night. So, guys,
Thank you.
So much for watching, indeed. And we will see you next time.
Later.
Bye.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Faith, Fiction, and Folklore. If you did, we would love it if you would subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on Rumble. We can also be found on X, Instagram, and Facebook. And we are available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and iHeartRadio. Thank you again very much for listening, and we'll see you next time.